Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to solve the 4x4 Rubik's Cube. Now the first thing you need to know about the 4x4 are the pieces. There are 4 center pieces on one face. There are 8 edge pieces on one face. And there are 4 corner pieces on one face. However, the thing to note about the center pieces, first off, is that there are 4 of them. On the 3x3, there is 1 centerpiece, and that single centerpiece defines that face. The 4x4 is like the 2x2, in meaning that when the 4x4 is mixed up, it looks like the 2x2, because we do not know which face the cube will be when it is solved. That's the thing to note about the centerpieces. When you mix up the cube, we do not know if this is going to be yellow or blue, yellow or green, green or white, white or blue, until we solve our cube. That was just an example. So in other words, there is no one definite center on the 4x4. Next, let's go ahead with the edges. These 2 separate edge pieces here define this white and green edge. So if I take this edge away from the other one, this could either be the white and blue or white and green edge. We do not know this until we solve our 4x4. And lastly here, we have the corner pieces, which the corner pieces are the same as they've always been. Now I'm going to go over the color scheme. The color scheme on the 4x4 is very important when you are solving it. We must remember it. So the color scheme is, you can compare it to a 3x3. White is opposite of yellow. Green is opposite of blue. And red is opposite of orange. So, first of all, that color scheme is very, very important that you must memorize it. So, lastly, let's go over the notation. In this tutorial, as in all the tutorials in the future, I'm going to change up my notation so it can be more standard and easier to remember. The correction will be in the upper left-hand corner, and this is going to be, instead of this being right clockwise, I'm just going to call it R. Instead of this being up clockwise, I'm just going to call it U. Same with front clockwise, it'll become F. With left clockwise, it'll just be L. Down clockwise will be D. And back clockwise will be B. For counterclockwise, it works the same way, except for one thing. Instead of this being right counterclockwise, it's going to be R prime. There's going to be an apostrophe after the letter, so you will know that means prime. This is U prime, F prime, L prime, D prime, and B prime. Lastly, let's go ahead and go over the inner layers. This is small r, or the 2 right layers. If you have a small r, this is a single small r. And it just means that in the notation, instead of it being a regular capital R, it'll be a lowercase r. If you're moving both layers, the R and the small r layers at the same time, then you will have a capital R next to a lowercase r. And that will indicate that you move both layers. The same goes with all the other faces. And so lastly, let's go over the prime. This is going to be 2 right layers, prime. 2 up layers, prime. D layers, prime. And the back layers, prime. So now that we have the basics down on how to solve our 4x4 Rubik's Cube, let's jump right in and actually start to solve it. The first step in solving the 4x4 Rubik's Cube is to solve the centers. Now there are different methods of solving the centers, but I'll just use the one that I learned. So the first thing you want to do is find a side that you will put your white centers on. We'll start with that color. And since this side right here already has two centers that are white on it, we'll just go ahead and use this side. So we need to find our other two white centers, and one of them is right here. So what we can do is we can simply rotate the upside over once, and then remove this center up. Our last center is going to be right here. What we can do in this case is we can rotate this 3x1 bar here so that it is facing the upper left hand corner. And we're going to do the same thing for this white centerpiece. So now the white centerpiece is in the upper left hand corner, and so is this. So we're going to go ahead and move this white centerpiece up so that it is on the white face. We're going to rotate this 2x1 bar out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and bring this 2x1 bar back down. So as you can see here, we have solved our white centers. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the centers that are opposite of white, which would be yellow. We have this yellow center right here that we can simply rotate up. However, notice that we have messed up our white centers. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this 2x1 bar out of the way so we can rotate our centers back down. We have this yellow center here. What we can do is we can simply rotate it up. And since we have to move this 2x1 bar out of the way and bring the white back down, this yellow center will come back down on the yellow face as well. So we'll move this out of the way and then bring this yellow center back down and solve our white. So our last yellow center is this one, and it needs to go here. We have that same case that we had before on the white face. But as you can see here, we already have our yellow centers in the top left-hand corner. We also have this center in the top left-hand corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this yellow center up. We're going to rotate this newly made 2x1 bar out of the way. And we're going to bring these yellow centers back. So as you can see here, we have solved our white and yellow centers. So now it's time to move on to this layer here, which has 4 sides on it. And you can generally start with whatever color you want to, but I'll start with blue. So as you can see here, we already actually have 3 of the 4 blue centers solved. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this center block here in the top left-hand corner. And we're going to do the same thing for this blue center as well. So now they are in the same position. So we can simply rotate up the blue center, move this 2x1 bar out of the way, and then bring this other 2x1 bar back. So now it becomes very important on our color scheme. You will notice that if you have yellow as your up face, and blue is the face that is facing you, red is to the right. So we're going to go ahead and solve red next. So that means this face is going to be red. So we actually have a 2x1 bar on the red face, and we have a 2x1 bar on the orange face, since red is opposite of orange. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this 2x1 bar so it is vertical with the other centers. So then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this other 2x1 bar so that it is in that same side as this first one is. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this right face 2 times, and then we're going to do a U2 to move this solved 2x1 bar out of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and move this right side back 2 times. So we've solved our red centers now. Now the last 2 centers on the 4x4 are going to be a bit tricky. We'll just go ahead and get started. So we have this 2x1 bar here. This is going to be green. The reason why we know this is because blue is opposite of green. So this is going to be our green face. We have to get all of the green centers here. And in the last 2 centers, when you solve one center, which in this case will be green, then the other center will automatically be solved with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rotate this 2x1 bar so that it is on the right side. Next we're going to go ahead and rotate it up so that's in the green face. We're going to move the up side so that this 2x1 bar is saved, and then we're going to go ahead and rotate it back. So we have 3 of our 4 centers. We have the same case as before. We can go ahead and rotate this green center so that it is in this top left-hand corner. And the bar is already in the top left-hand corner, so we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to rotate this green center up, move this 2x1 bar out of the way, and then bring the other 2x1 bar back down. So we have solved all of our centers in the 4x4 Rubik's Cube. Now let's just go ahead and check to make sure we've done it correctly. We have white is opposite of yellow, blue, orange, green, and red. So we have solved our centers correctly. The next step in solving the 4x4 Rubik's Cube is to solve the edges, or pair them. And this is an example of what a paired edge looks like right here. We can see that the 2 edges colors on the top here are orange, and the 2 edge colors here are green. So this is what a paired edge looks like. This edge resembles the edge right here on a regular 3x3. So we have to get all of the edges so that they are in this pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look for these edges. We have these 2 edges right here. So what we're going to do when the edges are directly horizontal from each other, we're going to rotate this right side up once. Move the up side so that it is in prime position. Move this edge so that it stays on this side that it was originally on. And then do an R2. So as you can see here, we have the edge horizontally across from the other edge. This is what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and slice this edge over so that it is paired. But we've messed up our centers. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this now paired edge in the top layer here. And we're going to replace it with an unpaired edge. So we'll just go ahead and do it with this one. We're going to bring that edge back down to this layer, and we're going to solve our centers. Our next edge here we can pair is going to be the white and orange edge. So if we rotate it down, we will immediately notice that they are across from each other. We do not want this. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this edge back, do a U', move this back face so that the edge still remains on this same side, and then do an R2. So as you can see here, we have made the edge diagonal from where it needed, from the other edge. So now we're going to go ahead and slice this edge over to pair it. We're going to go ahead and move this edge in the top layer here. Bring an unpaired edge into its position. Move that unpaired edge back down into this layer here. And we're going to solve our centers. So next here we have this yellow and green edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the top layer here so that this yellow and green edge is right above where it needs to go. And we're going to bring this side down. And so it is horizontal, like we want it. Next, we're going to slice over this edge that is paired with this one. We're going to move it into this top layer here. Bring an unpaired edge in its position, move it back down, and solve our centers. Next here, we are going to look at the yellow and blue. We can go ahead and rotate this side up. When we do this though, we notice that they are across from each other. We don't want this. So we're going to go ahead and move it up once. do a U prime. Get to this piece so that it is still in the same side, and then do an R2. So as you can see here, it's diagonal like we want it. So we're going to go ahead and slice it over, move it up into this top layer, bring an unpaired edge back over, move it back down, and solve our centers. Alright, so next we have the blue and orange edge. We can move this piece over once so it's in this left side, and then bring it down. Next we're going to go ahead and slice this over so that it solves, gets paired. As you can see, it's paired. We're going to go ahead and put it in this top layer here. But there's something to notice first. All of the edges in this top layer are paired. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and flip our cube over to the bottom layer here. We have an unpaired edge here. So what we're going to do is, if we rotate this piece up, that unpaired edge is back here. There is no unpaired edge in this top layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate this unpaired edge out of the way. Then we're going to rotate our paired edge up. We're going to rotate our paired edge, our unpaired edge, back, bring it down, and then solve our centers. Alright, so we have this blue and red edge, and we have the blue and red right here. We notice right away, though, that we do not have any paired edges in this top layer. So we're going to flip our cube over and see if we have any unpaired edges in the top layer, which we do not. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for a place on the cube that there is an unpaired edge, which we have it right here. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this front face so that when we slice it over, we have the unpaired edge in this top layer. So now we're going to go ahead and move it up into the top layer, move this unpaired edge over, and then bring it back down. Now we're going to solve our centers. So we have our last two edges here. Now the last two edges on the 4x4 Rubik's Cube is a little bit interesting. First, let's just go ahead and rotate it up. And in this case here, we are going to do an algorithm to solve these last two edges. Because when we have the last two edges, there are no other unsolved edges anywhere on the cube. So if we were to slice it over in this top layer here, we would not have an unpaired edge to put in its place. So we're going to use an algorithm to solve it. So you're going to want to get your edges in this place right here. You're going to want them to be across from each other. This is the only time you want them to be across from each other. Then, once they're across, you're going to do this algorithm with the two unsolved edges on the right side and the left side facing you. We're going to do the two down layers, R, F prime, U, R prime, F, two down layers, back. So as you can see here, we have paired these two edges. The third and final step in solving the 4x4 Rubik's Cube is to solve it like a regular 3x3. We have all of our centers solved and all of our edges paired. So now it's time to solve it like a regular 3x3. So, you solve it the exact same way, except there are going to be some parities, which will only occur when you're solving the last layer here. And I will go into that when I come back. This first case you might run into here for parity is when you have a flipped edge when you are solving your yellow face. Now right here I have just one of the several cases you can have, but you can all identify them by having either an incomplete bar, an incomplete hook, or an incomplete cross, which I have an incomplete cross here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the flipped edge so that it is facing me, and with yellow as my up face, I'm going to do this algorithm. Small r prime, u2, small l, f2, small l prime, f2, small r2, u2, small r, u2, small r prime, u2, f2, small r2, f2. So as you can see here, we have flipped this yellow and green edge. And then from here on out, you just solve your cube like you would in a regular 3x3. However, there is one more parity case you might run into, and I'll go over that next. This is one of the many cases you can have for parity on the last layer here when you're solving it. And this one is when you have two sides that are solved and two that are not. This edge needs to go here and this edge needs to go here. And so with holding one of the unsolved faces as our front face, we're going to do this algorithm. 2 up layers 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, up 2 times, small r2, up 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, and up 2 up layers 2 times. So as you can see here, we have solved that parity error. And in doing so, we have solved our 4x4 Rubik's Cube. This third parity error that you might run into here is when you have none of the faces solved in your 4x4. Now this case may look very similar to this case right here for this last layer in the 3x3, except the only difference is that in all of the faces, this piece needs to go to its opposite side. That's the only difference. However, on the 4x4 here, the orange needs to go to the red, yes, but the blue does not need to go to the red. That's the difference here. The green does need to go to the green, but the red does not need to go to the blue. So that's the difference here. So we need to do this algorithm to solve this case here. And it does not matter which face we hold facing us, as long as yellow is our up face, and we can do this algorithm. 2 up layers 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, up 2 times, small r2, up 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, and up 2 up layers 2 times. So as you can see here, we have solved that parity error. The last parity error you might run into on this last layer here is when you have two edges that need to be swapped, but instead of them being across from each other, they're next to each other. So it does not matter how you hold your cube as long as yellow is your up face and you have one of those two unsolved faces facing you. You can do this algorithm. 2 up layers 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, up 2 times, small r2, up 2 times, 2 right layers 2 times, and up 2 times. So we have solved that parity error. Alright, so you have solved your 4x4 Rubik's Cube. Just remember, the color scheme. Compare it to a 3x3 if you're not sure. And remember the parity algorithms. So that's about it for how to solve your 4x4 Rubik's Cube. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button down below, and please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it.